Salvete mihi nomen est Stella, et hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 233 for May MMXXIII. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, sometimes I think this is 2 out of 2, maybe. But if you are a person who just writes into the show, you may be granted access. This happened for good old Professor Carolyn Coca. And now here we have someone. Now, there is a crack in the multiverse, which has allowed this to happen. But Shayna from Earth 2 has come to visit Earth Prime. So welcome to the show, Shayna.
Thank you, Stella. Honored to be here.
Talking about some comics.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. I feel like, we do the email thing and this is like a whole new level.
Absolutely. Just stepping it up. So thankfully that crack exists in the multiverse. Hopefully it doesn't get wider because we know that crises do happen, but here we are. And I appreciate in your background, you even have 2 framed issues of Birds of Prey.
Yeah, those are, I'd have more up, but those frames are really expensive because they're like UV protected and made for comics. But those are from Terry Moore's gift and they're signed too. I don't know if you can quite see it, but everyone who, like Terry Moore signed them, Amanda Connor, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Phil Noto who did the cover.
Oh my gosh.
I really love them.
Yeah, that is awesome. So I know you've talked about your history with Birds of Prey probably on one of your first emails, but what is your history with comics? How did you get into reading them?
So I've always loved comics. I mean, we can go back to when I was a kid and I would just read the Sunday comics. Garfield was my favorite. I had so many Garfield books. And then I was raised on a lot of anime and manga. So my first experience was a lot of like Japanese and Korean comics too. It wasn't until college I started getting more into superhero comics and American comics. And I think a lot of that had to do with that was when there was sort of a revival in superhero films again. You had I remember the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, first Spider-Man was coming out when I was in college. So I think there was just more, it was more in like the zeitgeist. So I kind of took it in and I really got in. I loved like Harley Quinn comics and yeah, Batman comics were great. And then eventually, yeah, I kind of just wandered into, kind of just went from there, wandered into different things. And I kind of got out of college, didn't really think about them for a while. And then sort of in the last few years, I've rediscovered my love for them.
So besides Batgirls, what are you picking up on the monthly?
Currently?
Yeah.
Nothing really.
Okay.
I don't like a lot of modern comics these days. However, I did pick up the #1 of the new Green Arrow, mostly for Black Canary. I love Black Canary. And I did pick up Spirit World because I wanted to see what Cassandra Cain would be doing in it. So I will probably be following those. I was following the Blue Wall for a little bit, but I couldn't find the newer issues at my comic book store, and I kind of lost interest in it. So those are the newer comics.
I've sort of weaned. I feel like your trajectory and mine are very similar. I will say that because I'm wearing a Captain Marvel hat to represent that crazy stuff is going on over there in Marvel where they're killing off Kamala Khan, and not in her own book and not in Miles' book, but in ASM. And the internet has rightly exploded. Maybe the people can use their power for good this time. And I don't know, but I think it's a bad look because how many Muslim characters do they actually have? Or heroes, I guess I'll specify, but to do that. Yeah. So perhaps modern comics are just going downhill, but I think DC is kind of in a good place. I mean, Nightwing's really good. I'm kind of interested in what Tom Taylor does with Titans. So it goes back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know nothing about Marvel. I'm
Yeah.
strictly like DC. Like I know a
Okay.
little bit, and I know characters because of the movie and the TV. Like I've seen a lot. Like I've seen the Ms. Marvel TV show and
Yeah.
stuff. I'm not really familiar with any of
Gotcha.
those
Gotcha.
comic books.
So I did do a survey on Twitter, and this is kind of connected with the last thing that I'll talk about as my intro. I know the good professor doesn't like long intros, but here we are. Because I wondered about sort of the people who listen and their gender identities. And so I asked, how you identify, and had the four big ones. I know that there were more that I could include, but it seems primarily males are listening to this show. Now, only 19 people, I think, voted. So hopefully more than 19 people are actually listening. Not everyone's on Twitter, which I certainly approve of. Does this shock you that my audience is primarily male? Is Barbara Gordon bringing all the guys to the yard? Is that what's happening?
I'm I guess I'm not super surprised because in my general experience, I feel like the women in my life don't know anything about comics and they're not
Uh,
interested. So I guess
yeah,
from my perspective, I'm not surprised it's mostly men because I think that it's generally targeted. I mean, there's more diversity now and there's
yeah,
more attempts to get women and people of other genders involved, but I guess it's not shocking to me just based on my own personal experience with comic books. I'm the only woman in my life, and
yeah.
and I know mostly women. I know a lot of women, and I feel like I'm the only one who likes comics. So,
Yeah, I mean,
female or otherwise.
I was shocked that one of my colleagues, I had worn a Birds of Prey sweatshirt on Thursday. And so she started to talk to me about that. And I was like, oh, wow, I had no idea. So maybe all of these like women are just in the closet and we don't know about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that I thought that it was getting better because it certainly was a male dominated world and there was this gatekeeping involved. But I felt like with the Marvel films, it's been more accepting. But I think also a large number of my audience are coming from sperm and crawl space and have stayed with me. So there's probably that. I am
Mhm.
super excited though that one person, at least one person is trans. So I am very happy for that. And maybe two females looking at the percentage. So my final thing is I told Donovan I would do this. Donovan has a spicy Instagram. Now he says that it's to track his fitness, which is true. Um, I don't know how he's not gotten banned. In fact, some of his images, a friend of mine and I on our way to New York City actually did a deep dive into Instagram's guidelines, and like it literally says that he should be banned by now, but he's not. So he would, however, like more followers because currently it's all of his ex-girlfriends, me, Harry, and a bunch of gay men, and I guess a bunch of Russian bots. So I said, I will be glad to tell people about it. So on Instagram, if you want to follow him, it is Dono Dark, and that is DARRKK. And so this is a safe image, but I'll show you. Look at what Donovan's doing there. Embarrassingly, I was in line in the VIP line for Ellie and AJ. I was going to post something. It was after I had met them, and there was a black man behind me. And I pull up Instagram, and immediately I'm assaulted with basically a naked picture of Donovan. And I was really embarrassed because I didn't want anyone to think I was like fetishizing a black body. So that was the only time that I've been embarrassed to pick that up. I also have a spicy Instagram. However, it is very fitness based, and I'm nowhere close to what Donovan is doing. Um, but no one's going to find that, and I'm not going to be publicizing that. So just so you know. Okay, we're moving on. Look, the intro is done. So now we move on to Find Your Joy, Shag's Mac and Cheese, the comfort and joy. So what has been giving you joy in these times or even during COVID, since I don't think I spoke to you well, post COVID. So what had brought you joy during those times?
Ooh. Well, I think currently I'm just happy the weather's getting better and I'm getting outside. I've had so much snow this winter and
I'm
no,
jealous.
I know it's Sally shaking your head. You're so
I
jealous.
can't believe it. When I
I
think of the state in which you live, that is not my thought of snow dumping. So I should have apparently gone there.
well, yeah, I mean, I live in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, people when they think of yeah, where I live, they don't necessarily associate it with mountains and snow,
Yeah.
but I live in the high desert, so
Okay.
I get lots of snow, and it was too much this year, and so I'm just happy the weather is warm and I can be outside again and the sun's out. And so that makes me happy. And like I have a backpacking trip coming up in very beautiful country, a petrified forest, which is like open wilderness. So you're not backpacking on a trail, you can just go anywhere. And that's for my birthday. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. But
After you
yeah.
told me about that, I Googled a little bit because really you're like the terrain in your state, I really have no idea kind of what it was. And so I'm like looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is lovely. And now Google has suggested different trails and things that I could go on.
Well, so I'm just saying, maybe that's a sign.
Yes, that I should pick up a yeah, backpack. Yeah. I mean, I would love to do obviously after reading Wild, I think
Yeah.
that's the PTC is something
Yeah.
that I would love to do. The AT, which is, backdoor, I think is great. The issue is like finding someone to go with just because I
Mhm.
do a lot of things alone just because I'm not going to wait for anybody or try to find someone. But that's one thing that if I'm doing overnights, I think I would like to have, a travel companion just for safety purposes. I don't know. Cheryl Strayed was a badass, the fact that she did it all by herself.
Yeah, for the
Um,
first time too. Oh my goodness.
yes, yes,
So many things
perhaps
could have gone wrong.
yes, she was not the best prepared, but it did turn out. Yeah, I do love that book and that story. Shout out to Required Reading if you're interested in hearing Tom and I talk about that. We did a nice little arc of memoirs that were talking about travel. I think 4 episodes and then did a special where he and I went on a hike and then had a conversation. So that was a great time. So my first, are you finished? Don't want to cut you off or anything if you
Nope.
have any others.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
I have 4 things. Yeah, they're all quick. So first of all, finish my semester. This semester was a doozy. Yeah, thank you. Oh, some of my like close friends know, especially this one class that I was just fighting for my life trying to make it the most insane class. It's the 17-page exam, week 3. I came out okay with 2 A's, A pluses really. I have to show the people one last thing on this. I don't think I've shown this at all, actually. But the final portfolio involved 10 different documents that we had to do. And one of them was a performance task and a rubric. And so I've done performance tasks, I've done rubrics. My teacher of record is saying you need to color code your rubric. And so for the workshop, I refused to color code the rubric. This was our exemplar. She said, use this as a model of how it was nuts. So you have your KUDs. So, what do the students need to know, understand, do? And then these color coding need to match the entire time on directions and then the rubrics need to do this. So I'm looking through this that week and thinking, there's no way. So I refused to do it because that wasn't going to be a grade anyways, and wait for her feedback and then color code it for the portfolio because I knew I had to do it at some point. I went through so many iterations on both the performance task and the rubric. The performance task was annoying because I kept getting knocked for an inauthentic student role. And I was super excited. I was like, the kids are playing the role of a virtue and they're trying to convince this modern artist to represent them in a show to show that, virtues are still enduring and things like that. She's like, it's not authentic. So then I changed it to being an artist in Emperor Augustus's time, and Emperor Augustus has commissioned them to be an artist representing this virtue because, of course, he's all about the moral. No, that doesn't work out. So then the last time was okay, you're a documentarian and you're talking about virtues in modern society and you're focusing on, and that one worked. And then the rubric, my gosh, I had this one rubric, scrapped it because of the color coding because I knew I couldn't do it, and did a single point rubric. Was pretty happy. She said single points aren't allowed in this assignment. So I scrapped that, went back and started a new one from scratch. I actually got a 100 on that portfolio. So I try not to brag about things, but I just have to say that surviving that class, pat on my back for that one. So I just have 4 classes left. I'm taking one this summer, which I'm excited about, young adult literature. And then I'll have 2 in the fall and my final one in the spring, which gives me time to pursue licensure in the spring and also start applying for jobs. So that was nice. Fast and the Furious series, I rewatched all of them in preparation for Fast and the Furious X, which I saw on Thursday. It's nuts. It's awesome. I suggest go see it and stay off the socials if you are, a diehard fan. Shockingly, I've become interested in fashion. I'm not saying I'm fashionable. I have kind of my own style that someone says like, you have an interesting style. I like that you just like do what you want and work. And I'm like, absolutely. But I've been watching Vogue's A Life and Looks on YouTube, which have been very interesting. Like Salma Hayek, come on and they give them a book of different big pieces that they've had and they talk about it. So I'm interested in that. And that was actually good research for when I continue with the women over at Dear Reader, because there's some big fashion things that go there. And then finally, if you're interested in seeing me at a Comic Con as if I'm a celebrity, I am going to the Heroes Con, which is in Charlotte, June 16th through 18th. Shagalicious will be there, which I'm excited about. So those are all the Find Your Joys. Okay, that was a lot. So now we're doing some Birds of Prey. So this is basically the last nice episode. I think that's even how I described it to you when I emailed you. Before I get into war games, I've never read war games. I know enough about it to know it's not going to be a pleasant experience. So this is why I thought let's do this. So we're doing this arc between Dark and Dawn, and I immediately was confused picking up the first issue because if you recall at the end of issue 68, Barbara tells Helena she's going undercover in an elementary school. Do you recall this?
Is it yeah, no, did she actually say or was she being serious or was Barbara being facetious? Because I always thought it was like a joke. Like, "I've got a tough mission coming up for you, Helena." Because I don't think she uses the words, "You're going undercover," does she? She kinda, like, is kind of snarky about it.
Well, I wish I had my thing with my actual issue. You might have it, yes, but I'm pretty sure she says as a teacher because it connected with something where Helena had just discussed how much value she found in being a teacher, and then I
Right.
think the very last panel. Now, correct me if I don't want a woman's splain. Correct me if I'm wrong if you find it, but the last panel is her in front of a class.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and then hold on, I do have it. Yeah, she's got so Barbara calls Helena and she's like, Helena, I've got an assignment for you, and I'm afraid it's a rough one. And then you see her in front of the class with kids.
Yes.
So I interpreted that as like her Barbara being kind of facetious and being like,
Oh.
it's a rough one, you're gonna go teach, but not that it was like a mission that she was going undercover for.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Well, if we go with your interpretation, then that works out. If we go in with my thought that it was an actual mission, then we leap to
It doesn't make
cultists.
sense,
It does
yeah.
not make sense. But so we can go with yours. That's very interesting. But then here's my question. Why is Barbara involved in finding substitute teachers for the school system?
I don't know. I thought that was more just her helping Helena out, knowing that,
Okay.
Helena was once a
Oh,
teacher because she gets Dinah that
that's
for her
true.
floral shop because she has that conversation with her dad where her dad's like, "Hey, like you have these high, your high risk job colleagues, like
Yes.
playing
Yeah.
coy like he doesn't know." Which that's a whole
No,
other topic.
I have now switched to your side. And yes, I know, I think that does make sense now. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
she got the space for Dinah for the
Yes.
floral shop, and then she's like, "Oh, Helena, you know, gets this fulfillment out of teaching children. If she's an
Okay.
agent of mine, I'm gonna help her with that."
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for clearing that up for me. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So there are 5 issues in this arc, and I'm going to do the plot synopsis, and then we'll talk a little bit about each of them, and then save like kind of the big beat and the overarching ideas and themes for the end of everything. Some of the synopsis comes from DC Wikia, some of them do not, because I had to add things in and change things. So we'll start with 69. If Don or Harry were here, they would say nice. I still don't understand that, but they would. You can explain that to me later. I mean, I understand about the first thing, but not why it is always nice afterwards. Okay. So Birds of Prey 69. Also, I think they were pumping these issues out. I did not do research on what was actually going on, but it seems like 2 were dropping each month. Do you know anything about this? Maybe in prep for War Games and trying to get everything out?
Yeah, I do not. I did not
Okay.
read this as it came out, so I don't know.
Okay. So never mind. That's my fault. I'm just lazy and don't do a lot of research. Okay, so Birds of Prey 69, Between Dark and Dawn Part 1, early September 2004 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Ron Adrian, inker Rob Leah, and colorist Hi-Fi. 3 teenagers dressed like dead heroes. Those heroes are Donna Troy, Tara the second, and Robin the second, and commit suicide. Barbara Gordon thinks these are murders, not suicides. She sends Huntress to Kinder Pines, Oregon. Huntress goes into a bait shop, and when she reemerges from the shop, the local police are waiting for her, saying they suspect her car is stolen. Huntress determines that these are not real cops, and she starts fighting them. Huntress is captured and taken to Second Haven Redemptive Farm and Gardens. In the meantime, Gordon tells Black Canary that all 3 of the teens who committed suicide were once treated by or members of Second Heaven Redemptive Farm and Gardens. Donna goes to a parent of one of the murdered teens and confirms this. Barbara tells Canary also that she has someone inside the organization before Huntress who can help Huntress when she gets there. The members of the organization believe that Helena is a Ms. Crenshaw, a reporter for the Daily Planet. And as I was reading that, I was thinking you could have actually gotten Lois back on the team for a little bit. As she delivers an initial and positive report on the cult, Huntress gets into a scuffle with the guard and the other guards come running. Vixen reveals herself, and Helena believes Vixen is about to help her, being the undercover help that Barbara mentioned. But Vixen goes the opposite way, grabs Helena by the neck and lifts her off the ground, seemingly under the control of the cult. Okay. We'll start with the cover. Always like to do that. So Rainy, what she's saying, whatever, kind of got an attitude on her face, very Huntress. And
Very Huntress.
yeah, 2 boys in blue behind her. It looks like one of them's on his knees in the rain for whatever reason. Thoughts, her crossbow is down there. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't. It's not my favorite cover. In fact, none of these covers for this arc are, which is why I think, like, subconsciously, it's why I don't own any of them physically.
Okay.
So I have a lot of Birds of Prey because when I was looking for prep for this, I was like, do I have these physical issues? And I was like, no, and I probably just didn't want the covers, honestly. This one, I mean, I hate this outfit for Huntress. It's so, it's my least favorite. And then the cops are like firing at her, and I'm like, well, if they're firing at her, why is she standing there? Or why are they firing at her? So
there are many questions.
Not my favorite.
Yeah, but the rain, they got the rain right.
And oh yeah, the rain's
that
cool.
It's at a gas station. What is the purpose of having a cutout in the belly? Now, is it the same as having a cutout? I'm just asking. No, a cutout on the chest, because the chest for Power Girl, even though we can complain about it, did have a distracting purpose. For the guys to be distracted, then her to kind of knock them out. But I guess your eye tends towards there. I don't know. Her abs need the freedom and the breeze.
Yeah, I mean, it might be more just like it would be so shocking because, yeah, you're right. At least with the chest, it's like, oh, like that could be like a tool.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, because people might be like attracted to that or distracted. But maybe with the abs, it's more of a distraction. Like, wait, why? Yeah. And like doing a double take, or maybe you just really like abs. I don't know. I know Gail's explanation, how she wrote it, right, was like, well, when you do this many crunches a day, you want to show them off. But That was the in-story explanation
I
Gail
see.
Simone gave.
I mean, did you see Ant-Man Quantumania?
No, I have not.
Okay. I was gonna talk about I think her name's Katie O'Brien. But even her, because yeah, that lady has abs. I mean, it's not this weird sliver. It's like the sliver that gets me. I mean, if you want to wear a crop top, I'll still complain about it, but at least it's a crop top and it's like even, but it's just like very bizarre.
Yeah, I don't it's one of the reasons why, like, I don't like this outfit for Huntress because it
Yeah.
just it's so weird looking to me. It's not even that it seems like it just feels so weird because you're right, it is just a sliver and
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll move on. Not the most successful. Helena gets a lot of screen time, so we'll be back in the next issue to talk about that. My first question was answered previously. It was about the cult and the elementary school, so we got that. Okay,
that
so what sort of portrayal do you think we're going for here with how Huntress shows up in Oregon? Um, and the reason why I asked that is because she complains immediately about how she is dressed and the weather and everything, even though
Mhm.
she did that herself. She's supposed to be a reporter, obviously, but she not think it through when she was told Pacific Northwest and what that may have entailed? Do you have any thoughts about what she's wearing, I guess? Should we have any negative thoughts about her character right off the bat?
I mean, I guess, yeah, she didn't really do her research. She did say she does say she brought a spare change of clothes,
Yeah.
and we do see her in that spare change of clothes. I'm pretty sure in this issue. Um, so maybe she wasn't expecting the rain,
Okay.
or maybe she just decided to trust Barbara and take her at her word when Barbara was like, "Pack light." But again, was Barbara being serious or was Barbara being funny? I don't know sometimes. Trial by fire. This was the trial by fire. So
Yeah, that is true.
I don't yeah, I didn't really have too many thoughts about it. Honestly, my mind just goes to like, well, it's the early 2000s. Of course they're gonna make of course Helena is gonna be dressed like this because why wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Just from the perspective of how women are, drawn and what they're dressed in at the time in comic books.
Yeah, it's these boots here.
Yeah, the boots. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
All
I mean,
muddy.
she's
It's like
very
clearly not. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, yeah, when I think Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, I would think, oh, the chances of, especially with Washington, the chances of rain are pretty high. And also cold because I think she
Mhm.
comments on that as well. I don't know exactly what month it is, but yeah, I guess obviously I agree with you about I think it is the time period and like, hey, we're going to dress her in this way, and she certainly has the freedom to do that, and
Yeah.
power in her femininity. But also, when I'm reading this, I'm like, are you incompetent? Did you not? And I don't want to think of Huntress or Helena as
No.
incompetent because I don't believe that that's her character. So that was interesting. Lots of sexist comments. And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
did say after this one, let's see if it carries through, and it certainly does. Do you think that this is like the cult? Because the cult leader does not seem like a sexist man, like how he addresses Helena and all his children. It seems very pleasant. Obviously, we know we'll get into that, but like the people, the townspeople, and in particular the fake blue boys,
Yeah.
are very sexist. What's that coming from? Just like, is this maybe a criticism on religion and how sometimes, yeah, they're going to be called a Jezebel or something like that?
I didn't think of it from a religious angle that'd be coming from the religion. I guess I just kind of thought, well, it's Eastern Oregon,
Yeah.
which is very different from Western Oregon
Okay.
and known to be very conservative and rednecky, and probably as a result, sexist if we can generalize. And uh, maybe it was just more of like the culture
Okay.
of Eastern Oregon, and like just I didn't necessarily connect it with the cult at all,
Yeah.
especially because the cult leader didn't really seem like he had those he wasn't making comments like that, not
Yeah.
that I can recall. It was just, yeah, it was the guy at the gas station that she stops at, and then you were like, yeah, the fake officers.
Yeah. The Fake officer driving says, I don't talk with women who wear makeup anyway. It's unclean. So just shut up. And she's rightly flummoxed and said, it's not like mascara is contagious. Yeah, no, that is true. Or I knew someone from, or I dated from someone from Oregon, and it was interesting to me how very much like a cowboy he seemed. And it was weird. There's like this disconnect. I was like, it's Oregon. Why is it like it's Virginia or West Virginia? So I'll have to do more research on that, the East versus West divide. But I
Yeah.
did know that there was a kind of a country aspect to it, just from that particular person. Let's see here. Did Helena know, do you think, that there was an inside man? Because Barbara obviously knows, and it didn't seem like Helena knew, but when Vixen is actually there, she knew that it was Vixen. So were you confused by that? Was that an inconsistency, or do you think Helena just she knew? She was told by Barbara.
Yeah, I was confused about that, I think, as I read later on, because it definitely seemed like Helena was thought she was going in there alone.
Yeah.
So when she seems to know Vixen's there, I it didn't make sense to me. I thought maybe I missed something.
And then final question from me, if you have anything to add, please do. Thoughts on her clothing? Sorry, Vixen's costume. This particular era. I never knew that she wore something like this. I actually looked at her costume history to see, and it is in fact one of her legitimate costumes. Do you have any opinions on that one?
I don't know I don't know Vixen well enough as a character. So
Okay.
to me, I just saw it and I was like, "Oh, Vixen, okay."
It was, I guess, my primary relationship with Vixen is through the Justice League animated series. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that one, Mari has short hair, like very, I mean, she looks very like Halle Berry. And
Mhm.
the more orange yellow
Oh, yeah,
suit,
it's like a
kind of like the
jumpsuit
cut.
type
Yes,
thing,
yeah, I'm
right?
used to that. So
Yeah.
having her in braids and this full bodysuit, almost Zinda-esque in how it like buttons up a little bit. Um, yeah, it was very interesting. And the totem, which he seems to never use in this particular story, but we can get into that as well. Thoughts? Any other thoughts on this particular issue?
Uh, I thought it was a good setup. I really like this arc in particular, and I think the setup's really good because I think we talked a lot about Helena, but Dinah has a very interesting role too that I think
Yes.
and maybe those are thoughts to save when we talk about the story as a whole, but it's very suited to her character and her strengths to, be the one to talk to the families of the kids who have died by suicide, and I liked seeing that. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, giving Helena kind of a chance to prove herself too.
Yeah. How often do we see Dinah's humanity, would you say? Across the board, I guess, in Birds of Prey. Like this is a very human moment for her, and even her coming back from it and talking to Barbara and saying how hard it was also very interesting.
Are are you talking just about in Gail Simone's run or
I
throughout
guess we
like going
can.
back
Well,
later
you can take it
Vixen's
both
run?
ways if you would like. Yeah.
Because I think consistently throughout Birds of Prey we see her humanity a lot. I think it's one of her defining characters. And Gail Simone definitely, I think, takes that to the next level in
Hmm.
her run. I'm trying to think back on the last arcs and issues in Gail Simone's run for specific examples.
Well, she was the one who was mostly working with Steph in that very brief time that Steph was there.
That's true.
Kind of, she did have a hard hand at some points with
That's
that,
true.
but yeah. Do you feel like that's her role on the team? That Dinah is kind of the heart of the team?
Yeah, and I feel like I can't have come up with this myself because it seems so obvious to me. So I might have like lifted this from someone, but the way I've always seen it when it's come to Gail Simone's run at this point, or Gail Simone's run, I not even at this point, but with her run is that, yeah, Dinah's very much the heart, Helena's the brawn, and Barbara's the brains,
Okay.
and that's how I've seen it.
And together they make a full human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Um, I don't think so on this issue specifically.
Okay. And this, yeah, next issue we'll get into. You know, we don't see that old man again, the one that was trying to advocate for Dinah at the gas station, which I thought that was a
Yeah.
bit of a, I mean, maybe he's unimportant, but I kind of wanted him to reappear at the very end.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing him again.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to 70 again. Huntress is getting her her time to shine there. That looks interesting. Okay. We'll see if that's a realistic body pose or not. Okay, so this is Birds of Prey 70 Between Dark and Namhar 2. Huntress slash Prey. Late September 2004 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Ed Benes. Oh, you know what that means. Inker Ed Benes and colors Hi-Fi. Babs gives and create a place to live in a neighborhood destroyed by a drug lord. She wants to teach him empathy. Whoa. And have him clean up the neighborhood. Otherwise, he's back in the slammer. Vixen and Helena Bertinelli fight. Helena shoots Vixen in the leg. The fight is broken up by the cult leader who gets both women medical attention. Huntress radios Babs again and says that she's still not getting a vibe that the leader is evil. She finds her rental car where she stashed her uniform, i.e., her wonderful costume there. She also finds a building on the compound that is locked and she breaks in with a rock. Shout out to my favorite episode of Batman the Animated Series with Almost Got Him and Croc saying it was a rock. Anyways, she finds multiple metahumans hooked up to machines. There is a computer terminal. There's a computer terminal, and Babs gives Huntress directions so that she can hack in. Maybe she's better at computers than Dinah is. Suddenly, Barbara is attacked through her computer and begins having some sort of seizure. We're going to be talking about this stuff. And Dinah provides medical aid. Vixen arrives at the building that Huntress is at and seemingly kills her. We'll find out. Okay, we'll begin with Savant. So first of all, teaching him some empathy. Is it possible? Oh, sorry. Actually, pause, time out. I'm so sorry. Let us begin with the cover. We have to begin at the beginning. You didn't stop me, so it's clear you don't like it.
I
It
just no,
says
I hate it. It's not even.
backfire.
It's
Look at that.
not
It should say
even.
back broke.
It,
I don't know. I mean, her leg, look at this. It's
I
half
know.
of a rectangle.
I know it's the worst. It's not even, when Helena finds the metahumans hooked up, they're not even in that position. They're all like laying down flat, which makes sense. And I look at this and I'm like, oh, this is clearly just so like her breasts are, defined and she's in a weird like pose and I hate it.
Yes, it is odd. And yeah, it is. It almost connects to a little bit to this one with the connections.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think later on there's an even crazier one with Barbara. I think that's later on in Birds of Prey. But yeah, it's clearly a tie to, but it looks like an engine. It's not
It
even,
does, and
yeah.
it confuses me too because it's not like Helena's ever hooked up to anything. Is
Yeah.
she like, did I miss something? Like it's not like that happens in this issue because she's not a metahuman. She doesn't have any superpowers. So
Right.
that was just an interesting choice. At least in the next issue, that cover makes sense for what happens and what we see happen.
Yeah, I mean, Geoforce is just in a little tree pose or a
Yeah.
T pose. Is that what they call it back there in the YouTube? But anyways, okay. So
Certainly
no on the
not. It's
cover.
certainly not bent over what looks like a car
He
engine with.
is not.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, so thumbs down for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Teaching Savant empathy. Is it possible, do you think?
I think it's possible,
Okay.
but I am forever an optimist and I want to believe that people can learn empathy. So I would like to think anyone can learn empathy. And so I think it's possible. I don't know if it's possible in this method that Barbara's has set up in this plan of, giving him a little like section like a little neighborhood to take care of, but she might be tapping in. When you think of Savant's history, like she is, I think, trying to tap into that past of his. You know, he wanted to be a crime fighter
Mhm.
originally, and then he went too far, and I don't remember the exact details, but like Batman didn't approve because I think he killed or
He really
something.
does. Yeah,
So there is that potential in him that I think Barbara is trying to tap in with this.
I agree. I think sometimes I, as a teacher, am subversive in the way that I teach empathy, depending on what the topic is, depending on what my audience or the type of students that they are. So you can't sometimes be obvious about it or very direct.
Mhm.
You kind of lead them into it. And then by the end, you're like, aha, gotcha. That's empathy. And so in this way, she is very much tapping into that history. You're right. Almost making it a competition because she even says, like, clean up these streets and you'll have done something that Batman has never done because that's how bad it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And so through like he's gonna do it. Well, I mean, we'll find out, I guess. But yeah, he has like an intention of something, but perhaps along that journey at the very end he'll like learn what that empathy is. So I think Barbara's kind of pulling my trick and being subversive and knowing how to meet him where he is.
yeah. I think so. I think she's got like a master plan, and she's using some tricks.
She always does, that girl.
Always.
Do you what are your thoughts on Barbara enacting this plan with Savant without having spoken to Dinah beforehand? Did she not learn from the conversation that they had in the park about her bad experience, Dinah's bad experience, and not really agreeing with that? I mean, she kind of goes ahead with this plan and then tells Dinah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I must be thinking ahead to further down the line, but I thought Dinah was would be more upset by this. Instead she kind of, even though Barbara's like, you just say the word and I'm just gonna stop, or
Yeah.
we don't have to do this. And Barbara and Dinah, she doesn't really give a reason, but she's like, no, I don't want that. And I thought Dinah put up more of a fight. I thought there was more of a conflict between them, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. I do think that I think from a storytelling perspective, it's very interesting because it gives that conflict between those two characters, which I
Yeah.
really enjoy. As far as like an in story, do I think like it's reflective of Barbara's character and that relationship she has with Dinah? She should have said something, or what do I think about that coming from that kind of perspective? Yeah, I am kind of surprised. I would have liked her to have talked it more with Dinah. Again, I'm not really sure the reason why Dinah is still okay with it. Like she seems
Yeah.
like she's not, especially if you go back to last the issue you covered last month, last episode.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like I lost your question in my
Oh, that's it. No, I just
family.
I
I
mean,
was like, what was I trying to
no,
answer?
I think you answered it. I'll restate it in case you want to. So basically, in '68, they had that confrontation about Savant, that whole plan where she broke Savant out of jail so that they could help because that mission was really going to pot.
Yeah.
And Dinah had a problem with that, and Babs is like, that's what I just had to do it. And yeah, he's free, but we'll watch him. And so she goes ahead with this plan, and then she's kind of telling Dinah, but why didn't should she have had this conversation before? Like, here's my plan. I think we should utilize Savant, and this is what I'm going to do. What do you think? But we don't see it. Maybe it happened, but it doesn't seem like it happened from this dialogue.
Yeah.
I will read the dialogue for those people not in it. Dinah says, well, this has all the earmarks of a classic train wreck. And Bad says, I hope not. Enjoy the feeling of the sun on your skin, you utter creep, as Dinah. He broke my legs and chained me to. I know, Dinah. Say the word and I'll drop the plan and take my chances that he'll reveal what he knows about me and what we do. No, I don't want that, is what Dinah says. Bads continues, we needed him to get out, which is of course that mission. Right now he's a devil we know, but know him we do. He's being monitored like no one else on Earth, Dinah, I promise. And it's just barely possible he'll do some good. I don't have anyone who can patrol that area 24/7. The people there, they deserve that. And then Dinah says, Babs, no one believes in second chances more than I do. I mean, yeah, she and Hunter's there, but I have a gut feeling that this will end in tears. So she's clearly not on board, but she's like allowing it to happen.
Yeah, and I guess that now having you reread that dialogue, I guess yeah, when Dinah's like, Dinah's response to Barbara saying, "Hey, like I'll drop it if you want me to." I guess the when Dinah's like, "No, I don't want that," she was speaking specifically to Barbara talking about, "Oh, well, if he might reveal everything, like our identities and what we do," and I guess that's what Dinah
Yeah.
was responding to. But there definitely is some conflict there about
Yes.
Dinah because she has very personal feelings, understandably so, what he did to her.
Yeah.
And, I think might be a little foreshadowing.
Oh, well, yeah. And I don't know that I necessarily recognized how much that situation where she was kidnapped, chained to a bed, and her legs broken, is traumatic as it should. And I think Gail has done a good job. I guess this is like her pre Barbara Gordon PTSD practice, because even in this arc, Dinah makes mention, I can't remember which issue it is, where she's about to go to an address to a teen that is about to commit suicide, and she even says like the last time this happened, she was kidnapped. So it's clearly staying with her, and I know that trauma is harkening back to the trauma that she encountered in longbow hunters, had to think about it. So she does have a right to be angry. I don't know what Barbara Gordon is doing. I don't know if I'm still processing whether I think this is her character or not, but she seems to have trouble. Maybe it's because it's the brain. I don't know, thinking through some of her actions. She immediately makes just a decision and doesn't necessarily, she thinks about the fallout in terms of like other people, but not about her own team. And I mean, I think about even when she fired Dinah, like there were reasons why she did that, but she does not verbalize why she's firing Dinah. And then it just comes off really badly. So I feel like this would be the time. You had a really nice issue in 68. Everyone was coming out and somewhat supportive, and you were open, and so like let's carry that forward. But then we take a step back with Barbara maybe not communicating why she was doing this when she earlier. I think that this relationship is really beautiful in this arc, which we'll talk about overall. But yeah, I agree, maybe this should have gotten a little more heated. But also maybe Dinah is just realizing now's not the time because there's like other stuff going down, i.e. the cult, and trying to prevent more suicides from happening. I don't know.
Yeah, and here's a question that popped into my head as you were speaking. Uh, do you think if the roles were reversed and Dinah was like, "I can rehab the
Ooh.
Joker," Barbara, what do you think? How would Barbara feel about that?
Yo,
Would
that'd be, we'd have to hashtag cancel Dinah.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
it'd be
I
no
don't
good.
know.
Yeah,
But I think of like those levels of trauma when
yeah,
you bring the perpetrator, you know, or you bring the perpetrator in to the team, or you want to rehab them, the effect that might have
yeah,
on someone who's a victim of some kind of abuse or trauma from them.
yeah.
I think it's very serious. And yeah, I agree with you. I think Barbara likes to keep her cards and her plans close to her chest.
Yeah, and
But
there's
maybe she
been,
should give her reasons a little more.
I agree, yeah. I think, and there's also been no apology um
Ah, yeah.
from Savant. I don't know if that I mean, no spoilers, but I don't know if that happens or will it happen, but I feel like before there to actually be a chance for her to move on, and I know that not everyone can move on just with an apology. I know I think I don't know if it's this that I've talked about or not. Maybe I've just talked about it when I've gamed with Harry, but I think that's like the first step potentially is apologizing for that, and then it's kind of up to the other person. But if he's about to be on that team, and I know that he's on it in volume 3. That wasn't very good, but I remember he was on the team. So hopefully there's some sort of apology made or a good scene and conversation between the two of them. But I don't know that if the Joker apologized, which would be very out of character, if the Joker apologized to Barbara Gordon, I don't know. That'd be real hard.
Yeah, I think you'd also have to ask, you'd also have to, or you'd have to look at the Joker's capacity, I guess, for empathy,
Yeah.
right? Savant, there's potential there
Yes.
because he
Yeah.
did want to help people eventually, but the Joker's never, at least we don't know, he's never been shown to have any potential for that. So it might be, the answer might be easier
Yeah.
than we think.
As a fan of anime and manga, have you read or watched Fruits Basket?
Yes, I love
Okay.
Fruits Basket.
Did you watch the new well, even if you've read it, but at the very end, and so now I've like forgotten their names, but the horse,
Oh, I don't.
um, do you remember the horse, the girl who was the horse? After everything, like the house, well, the curse is done. Um, and everyone's kind of like chatting about she basically it says like I don't know how you can like continue on as if nothing had happened. Like she does not forgive the head of the household because
Right.
she was like really abused in that whole situation. And so I thought that's really realistic because everyone was abused in that house by the head of the house, but and some of them will be able to push forward and some of them will not be able to, and I really love that story. And as someone who believes in redemption and grace, it would be love to, but like it's just going to take her a long time or not, she just won't be able to, and I think that's absolutely allowable. So I just feel like that could be something there. If something changes, it's up to Dinah whether or not Dinah decides to pursue a relationship with Savant, a non-erotic relationship. But yeah, okay. That was heavy. Any other thoughts on that? I do have other questions, but just to move on from that particular.
No, I
Okay.
think I'm good on that one.
Is Huntress versus Vixen a realistic matchup? And here I even say we don't even see Vixen use her totem. So with or without her totem, is that a realistic fight, do you think?
Again, I don't
Oh,
know
that's
Vixen
yeah.
enough as a
Okay.
character. I mean, if she was using her totem, I think it'd be pretty easy to be like, oh no
Yeah.
way, would Hunter stand a chance? But maybe not. Then it's just two people with
Yeah.
human capabilities, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So I guess it could be even. I don't know what Vixen's physical skills are without, or capabilities are without the totem.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah, if I chose to edit these podcasts, I would pull up like fight cards or something to see how how they matched up. Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I think of it, well, again, Justice League is where I'm getting my information, but I just feel like Vixen is more powerful as a more skilled as a fighter. I mean, she does knock out Huntress, but I just wasn't like KO, I guess. But I just felt like it was more evenly matched on paper than I thought that it would actually. But listeners, if you are Vixen aficionados, please let me know what you think about this matchup. And then, okay, I have a comment that says, I just want to say I don't eat with that posture when I'm standing up. Let me see. I think I remember the scene. I pretty sure it was
I think I know
Dinah. Is it
exactly what
Abby?
you're referencing. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, it's with Dinah and the burger, right?
Yes. Is it
Because
this? Yes.
I too was like, who stands like
Who
that while
eats?
they're
Yeah, I
eating?
don't know. And then she sits. Is there more? Oh yeah. Like I don't know. I mean, is it good posture? It's just like her. I don't
It
know.
looks like she's breaking her back.
Yeah. I mean, Maybe if you were flirting with a man, but Barbara, she cares not for your curves there, Donna. Yeah, I don't know. Also, I mean, I would just be like eating like this. I'd be slouching. Whatever, Dinah. Ed Bennis. Okay. I think
That's
that's
true.
yeah.
Venice.
Any further thoughts or questions on 70?
Let's see. What do you think about so far? What do you think about Broussard, the sort of the
Oh,
head guy? What do you think about him so far?
I would so I don't know a lot about cults. I know that they seem to be big, like, and by that I mean on like if Netflix or something, people are really interested in. I know people
Yeah.
listen to podcasts and things like that. The only cult that I am interested in watching is from Midsommar with Florence Pugh. That was very interesting for me, but I do love Florence Pugh. So I can't say, well, it's probably very similar, I guess, these leaders. But I would say that I get the same feel that Huntress does, in how he's interacting, which is why I'm very stunned, I guess, with the very quick shift as or switch over once we get to the second half of this arc. He seems like a loving guy, he's taking these people in, but obviously we know that there's something else going on if these kids are coming out and doing what they're doing. Do you get a bad read on him?
No, I feel the same way. I think Helena's instincts are right. Yeah, and I think he's a very interesting character in this arc, but and so it's interesting for me to sort of like track where he is each issue because I definitely have more to say about him, but not right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, because he's fine. I feel like these two issues that we just did, it's on track. For me, there's just like, when does this break happen? Which we'll see. I feel like there might be an inconsistency, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, recriminations. There we go. I had the wrong emphasis. Recriminations are a burden to the spirit, Mari. Blame is not significant. I mean, it seems great. Clearly, people are kind of under mind control, so you do have to connect those two pieces. But he seems like a loving guy. He doesn't seem like a skeeve. Um, mm, yeah.
Do you
How?
think at this point in the story that I mean, aside from when do you think the kids are under mind control? Or do you think they really are these sort of lost, forgotten children who he's been able to take in and give them a purpose and a place of belonging? And even when it comes to the suicides, do you think that's mind control too?
Well, this could be a coloring error, but that person's does not have pupils. So that would be my only
I
indication
see.
that there might not be. And then Vixen down there doesn't have pupils either. I don't know.
No, I
Um,
mean, and that's a good point. Like Vixen definitely is being mind controlled. There's
yes.
definitely, you're right. There is some kind of, there's something else going on.
Yeah, yeah, I think there are just so many different parts. So you have this guy, and maybe it's Huntress not willing to see through, like there's something uh putting up blinder, which I'm interested with her religious relationship or her relationship with God as he asks, and she says, well, we'll get back to that. But we have Huntress and her relationship to the cult leader, which seems fine. He seems like a loving guy who cares for everyone. Vixen is clearly acting out of character. The cops are one step away from violence at all times. And then who knows about the kids? We saw that there's a schoolyard fight and they all surrounded it. So I don't know. So there are all these different pieces, and she could interpret any of them in one particular way, but she decides to lump them all together and be like, well, this guy seems okay. Maybe there's some other nefarious
Mhm.
force going on at the time. I don't know where that's coming from for her, but no, it could be that he does. I mean, just that whole scene in the medic station, I think it seems like he's an okay guy and he does care for those kids.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a coloring error with the white eyes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's a question I had, how much of this was mind control versus
yeah,
how much was just human psychology and what happens in cults, especially with kids
yeah,
who, get kind of lost in society. So
absolutely. And I mean, yeah, these could be, we I don't know how often we actually talk about homeless kids. Um, I think the conversation is just always bullied by something else that's popping up in the media. But just like thinking about, I'm learning more about like the queer community and how I think that's a high percentage of kids out on the street are teenagers who have no place to go because they've come out either their own consent or not, and they're kicked out and they have nowhere to go. And so I could imagine, there being a bunch of queer kids in this cult, and this guy is showing the love of God, and he is not, judging them for that. Yeah, why not? It looks very enticing, and here's this father figure that is loving me, whereas my own father did not. So yeah, for sure.
yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I know one of the things he mentions, I think, in the first issue when he's talking to Helena is that a lot of the kids have been raised by TV and computers and stuff like that. And I think that's another aspect too, where a lot of kids who feel alienated in their own homes, that's what they turn to.
Yeah.
And then, just like if you were physically homeless and alienated physically from your household, you could be sort of taken in by something like this. But also, you see that online a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mhm. Final thing is just this, as a fan of the little xenomorph, I was happy to see this ad. Any other thoughts on 70?
uh, mm, did you did you have? I can't. I thought when you were doing the summary and you finished the summary, you wanted to talk about the end with Barbara
Oh,
having the seizure, or
yes.
did I misinterpret your comments on that?
No, I did say we'll talk about that. I don't I guess maybe it's comics and we should just allow it, but the Barbara stuff, I really have to suspend my disbelief. I mean, could this do you believe that this is possible?
That something could come out of the computer screen and zap Barbara.
Correct.
It's hard to believe now, but I feel like when we get to it, or when we, get further into this arc, I find it more believable. And
Okay.
I guess I see it, and this again is something I feel like I'll bring up later, but I see it more metaphorically. I see it more as a metaphor of being zapped into a screen instead of
Okay.
like an actual physical of like something physically from the screen is coming in, like physically affecting her. I see
Yeah.
it more metaphorically. I think it has, at least for me, bigger, it has a much different statement about just people who are get absorbed by tech and screens and sort of lose touch with reality. And I don't want to get in that here because that kind of comes up later. But so physically, it's hard, but I see it as a metaphor or something like
Okay.
that.
So this is maybe a very topical arc because of, kids these days and how attached to their phones they are.
I've got a lot to say to say about that. When I read it, I felt like it could very much be taking place now.
Oh yeah. The whole I think there was TikTok. They decided they were going to put like a limit and you had to like log in a password or something. And I think people were upset about this, but I thought that's lovely. I would love to have this happen for me on Instagram because I like to watch capybara reels and cat reels and things like that. But
That's hard. Who doesn't like a good capybara video?
I know, but when the minutes turn into hours, it's time to put that away. But that's why I try to keep my phone off on the weekends and like really just fast from technology. Here we go. Okay, 71. This is big. Superman's in this entire issue. Okay. Birds of Prey 71 Between Dark and Dawn Part 3 Insanity Defense. Early October 2004 is the cover date. Back to the original creative team. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Ron Adrian, inker Rob Leah, and colors Hi-Fi. Barbara Gordon, oh, I forgot about this. Barbara Gordon wakes up in a hospital bed after remembering what it was like to be Batgirl, get shot by the Joker because we haven't forgotten, but here we are, and to be loved by Nightwing. Superman plays a quick visit as he was the one to fly them to the hospital. Also, apparently, Dinah has enough time to change, even though Barbara was seizing. So the cult leader talks to his quote unquote God, and Huntress's death is ordered. Vixen and Huntress begin to talk. Finally, Vixen has, all of these things are coming back to me. Vixen has bit out the communication device in Huntress's arm and asks who is sending the messages to Vixen, and also who is Vixen, she asks. Dinah borrows some guy's laptop, and Babs is working on it in the hospital and is able to see code without the computer even being on. So she is Neo from the Matrix. Dinah is horrified and takes her out of the hospital. It's not how it works. Back in Gotham, Creote and Savant begin back in Gotham, Creote and Savant begin. Is it meeting out vigilante justice, or meting out? Let me met out. Maybe I should change that word. METE. It must be meet.
Yeah.
It's just going to sound very weird. And like, I don't, okay. So back in Gotham, Creote and Savant begin meeting out vigilante justice. Sounds wrong. Huntress reminds Vixen of who she really is, countermanding the cult's brainwashing. They head out the back door of the building to find themselves surrounded by cult members. Meanwhile, Dinah goes to get food. And when she returns, Babs has drawn her vision, a vision board, her vision of the future. And it looks like a cyborg version of her. Okay. So we'll first start with this cover. It says High Hopes.
I also hate this cover, mostly because I don't know how that's comfortable for Dinah. Like, how is her socket or her shoulder not popping out of her, or her arm popping out of her shoulder?
Yeah, she should be like dangling about too.
So
Her
I
core
know
strength is that strong that she's able to
okay.
plank midair. Don't question it.
So that's my problem with this cover. I mean,
Okay.
that's it though. It's all right. Other than
We
that.
do see all of Barbara's legs, which is
We
nice.
do. We do. We got all of Barbara.
Yeah, we don't often get that. Okay. I mean, I did think Superman was really going to play a big part in there, but he does not. Okay. Well, oh my. I don't know where to begin. I guess my first note is just, oh, there's more makeup talk. The makeup talk. Yeah, there is a lot of makeup talk in this story arc. I said there is more in this story than normal, and the art doesn't reflect it. And I wondered if it was necessary to talk about makeup. So here, it's about mascara, and I'm like, well, you can't see her mascara running. So
No.
what's going on there? I'm surprised Dinah was able to convince Dick Grayson to leave the hospital room. I guess that was just a clever way to not have him be in the story potentially. Maybe it would have been too hard for Barbara if she woke up and he was there and at least the flowers were there. Do you have any thoughts on Dick's absence?
I am not clear what the state of their relationship is at this point in time. So I don't know.
They're
I don't
broken.
have really any
All I
comments
know is
about
they're
it.
broken. I think it's always, on Facebook it would always be it's complicated, but they're definitely broken up. I mean, he married Nearly, or did he? Tarantula?
Oh, see, I'm
That
not
was a weird.
familiar with
No,
the
I would
Nightwing
avoid that.
runs.
Yes. Something
So
I can't remember. They were in it was weird. I don't recommend it. He was recently sexually assaulted though. by Tarantula.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am familiar with that.
Yeah, but then Batman scooted him out of there. I assume because of War Games. So yeah, Dick got a call and was very excited and left Tarantula. So it's complicated. They're broken up, and he is dealing with some trauma, but not that is not has not been written well. So I guess that's all I could say.
Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts.
Okay.
I'm not a
I guess I would
huge
have liked to have seen
you're
him.
gonna hate me. I'm not a huge Dick Babs shipper,
Oh my
so
gosh. Okay. And
it's okay. If
call
you need me to leave, I'll
immediately.
just get off the call.
Yeah, it's time for you to. It was nice to have you for this brief time. Well, I might regret asking, but then with whom? Oh, is it Jason Bard?
No,
Jason Todd?
no. Come
Oh
on.
no. Keep going.
You're also gonna hate me for this because I know how you feel.
Oh
I'm a huge Dinah
no.
Babs
So
shipper.
I was saying I was sticking with
Oh no,
heteronormativity,
no,
but
no, no. I mean,
oh
in that
no.
case, I like her with Ted Cord,
Okay, okay, but
but
Babs and
also
Dinah.
Dinah Babs.
Dinah Babs. Wow. Okay, well, I did have
I
a
mean, I
question
could.
later on. Now I know where we're going with this. Well, 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 I found one. Okay, that's fine. We'll get back into it. I personally would have liked Dick to have been in the hospital room. That would have been lovely. My super heart would have loved it, but he wasn't. But at least he had flowers, so that was
Was
good.
nice.
And he didn't leave a playing card on her legs like Batman did.
Oh God, yeah. This is awful.
I am like you and don't know too much about Vixen, but I didn't know that she was a daughter of a reverend. So it's interesting that we do have Huntress with her Catholic background, and then Vixen has religion in her background. So I feel like we're getting somewhere, but the story doesn't go where I would like it to go. Where are Huntress and Vixen during this particular conversation that they have? It looks like an apartment. I didn't know why it wouldn't have happened in the actual test area. I I think I find just weird details and ask questions about it, so please forgive me, but
No, I that's a good question. I don't think I paid attention to the location at all. Probably because there was nothing like discernible about it, you know.
yeah. Well, at one point it's a kitchen because she gets a knife because she's
Oh
about to
yeah.
do like some seppuku. Seppuku? Yeah. But I just wonder, are there housing complexes on the site and she gets her own suite being in the upper echelon? I'm not sure. Um, Savant and Creote are on adventures, and it does seem like a dark buddy cop comedy waiting to happen. I mean, they're joking around in it.
Yes,
Well,
they are.
as much as Savant and Creote can joke, I'm trying to see. He said something pretty funny with a straight face.
I mean, I wasn't one of the stipulations that Barbara gave Savant and Creo. It was like no serious injuries, but it kind of looks like there's some serious injuries this time.
Yeah.
Though I never know what that means in superhero comics. What counts as a serious injury?
Anything you can walk away from, I guess, is minor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even bones protruding. Um, Yeah, I think, when I read Creote, I feel like he has no affect, so you can't really tell when he's joking or not, and maybe he doesn't even know uh why he's joking, but Savant says exactly why are we here again? And or even I guess at the beginning he says, I must say, our opponent's habitat seems less than refined. Exactly why are we here again? And then Creote says, you are here because Oracle implied that you are incapable of satisfying the mission objective. I am here because you are here. And then I guess Savant says, you're implying that she played me. I believe she is your blind spot, Mr. Savant. So it's very interesting. I guess these men are not yet in a romantic relationship. They're just friends right now.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I know
Do we
there
see
are
that
those
on
like
page?
subtle hints because
Okay.
in her Gail Simone's second run, right? that becomes
They're
more
further.
clear, more explicit. But there
Yeah.
are like these little subtle hints. Like, doesn't Creo say Savant says something like, "I'm here because Oracle is giving me," or Creo, I think, tells Savant, like, "You're here because Oracle is giving you a second chance, and I'm here because of you," or something like
Right.
that. So there
Yeah.
are these little hints, but I don't think it's ever explicitly
Okay.
pointed out until Gail Simone's second run.
Gotcha. Okay. And my final, I guess, detail-y question is, should Dinah have left Babs in the hospital?
Instead of taking her home.
Correct.
Uh, I don't know. I don't think I thought of it one way or another. In retrospect, maybe she should have,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it would have mattered because Barbara was looking at a blank computer screen and like having these visions, and
Right.
she was drawing on paper. It might not have mattered one way or the other
Yeah, where she
where she
was.
was.
Yeah. I guess I just wonder, I guess she just checked herself out. Just seems nuts as someone who had worked in a hospital. Just seems crazy. Okay, so we're still with the, I guess we'll say, the good cult leader. I mean, he's praying, and he also looks like he has nightmares of the kids that killed themselves. So like he has a lot of remorse, and even, he tries not to, I beg of thee, not the children, do not make me send them to this task. And then ends up saying, your will be done. Which, I mean, there's a broader message, of course, about being religion being perverted for various purposes, but it's still, I don't know, it's maybe, I guess it's the next issue that just a complete character change. So I'm still okay with, by okay, I mean, I feel like he is represented well in being this kindly leader. And yes, he is doing bad things, but he's not relishing in doing them. So it's like, okay, stepping closer maybe towards what we imagine. But it seems like we take a hard left turn soon.
Yeah, and I think it's in this issue. You can kind of see he's talking. There's someone else pulling the strings.
Correct.
We
Yep.
don't know yet. And you can tell he's very conflicted. And
Yes.
yeah,
This is
his
all we see.
intentions seem good. If,
Yep.
his actions are misguided or not great.
Correct. Okay, and then if you came home and your friend had made a vision wall with this image, would you be concerned?
I'd be very concerned.
Okay.
At first I'd be like, wow, you've been hiding out on me. You're an amazing artist. But then I might just be a little concerned. That's yeah.
Yep. And now to answer your previous question, of course, we have all the kids and they have some solid weapons at the very end. So something's going on.
So yeah, it looks like there is some mind control
Yeah.
happening for
Yep.
sure. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this particular issue?
Nah.
Okay. Issue 72. Okay. Between Dark and Dawn Part 4, Material Girl, as sung by Madonna. Late October 2004 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Ron Adrian, and inker Rob Leah, colorist Hi-Fi. A scarily omniscient Barbara Gordon sends Black Canary to save another suicidal teenager, and Donna flashes to the last time this happened was fake and led to Savant. Babs stands up from her wheelchair. She's healed. And she confronts Brainiac. That's right. Brainiac puts on the guise of Joker and gaslights Barbara, attempting to get her to shoot herself or beg to be shot. Canary saves a kid named Lewis, dressed as Speedy, from jumping off a roof to his death. They've been told that the kids, that is, they have been told that superheroes are angels, and when they are martyred, they sit at the right hand of God. Thus, the reason they have been killing themselves. Brainiac, using Oracle's voice print, tells Black Canary there are 3 more kids in her area that she has to save. Which I was confused because I thought, oh, this is clearly a lie. But actually, there were kids. So We can come back to that. He then transforms into Nightwing and continues the gaslighting. And I think Nightwing has the mullet at this point in time, but I have to refresh my memory. Back in Oregon, Vixen and Huntress face off against several cult members. Once they have gotten through those members, they search for the leader in hopes of severing his connection to the cult. In a church that is a veritable shrine to superheroes, they find him backed up by all the metahumans that were connected to the machine in one of the buildings in the compound. Hunter shoots him with her crossbow, and I thought she killed him, especially given Mari's reaction. He explains he has given orders to the members to kill themselves. Back at the clock tower, Brainiac explains that he met the leader in the realm between brain and machine, but he, meaning the cult leader, is inadequate to his needs. Babs, however, is adequate and is reborn as Oracle and will soon be mother to Brainiac. Okay. Here we have the cover. It says Vixen's on the prowl and Oracle's possessed. How often do you do yoga in that sort of pose right there?
Is that what she's doing? Yeah.
I don't know. That's the closest I could say.
I mean, at least this is probably the bar's low,
Sure.
but for this arc, this is my most favorite cover because at least it feels. And maybe I'm biased because this is actually a who's the cover artist again?
It says Greg Land. Oh,
Yeah,
you do?
and
You
I love
Greg
Greg Land covers. I love Greg
Okay.
Land covers, and I also think it's not. It actually represents what's happening, and it's not. It doesn't seem like it's overly objectifying any women. I mean, yeah, Vixen, okay, a little bit, but it's not the same way as like Huntress being bent over backwards on something. And I'm also not having weird, like with the last cover, weird feelings about how is Dinah's arm not like popping out of her shoulder socket right now. So I like this. I like this cover.
Okay. I will say I also think that it's probably the best. I'm kind of scared by the next one. It's staring up at me. Now I learned from Shagalicious that Greg Land uses real life people as his models. Do you have any idea who this might be? I don't know, so it's not that sort of question.
I have no idea. I know his covers always stand out to me because he likes using like models and stuff, like models and magazines and stuff, but I have no idea who that would be or what. That's an interesting pose. That's one like I wouldn't necessarily look at and be like, oh yeah, that I could see him lifting that from some kind of magazine or something. I think a lot of his other covers for Birds of Prey, it's easier to make that connection.
Yeah. And this, well, now that you're here, it's only connected to that part. I forgot after I just neglected to ask when I was editing that issue, that episode of Shag. I wanted to ask whether he thought that was plagiarism or not. Do you feel like there's any? Because is he modeling too heavily if he's drawing from actual covers and things like that? Do you think that's a form of plagiarism?
I think it's paying homage. I don't think I would say it's plagiarism. I think it's paying homage, honestly. But you might have to investigate Greg Land's intent.
Oh, yeah.
To really get at that question.
Unfortunately for the world, we're at an eerie time with plagiarism because of that little robot thing, Chat GBT.
Oh, no.
So and I think an AI in Snapchat now, that also, because I like overhear the kids when I'm subbing, they're like, put in this essay topic and see. Like, this is bad. So anyways, just be aware. If it's not your work, then it's plagiarism. I don't remember where this is, but there's a quote that says, we're lubed on this end. And I wondered, is that an actual turn of phrase? Because if it is, I've never heard it before. So please, I feel like it's, we're lubed on this end, Huntress. I'm afraid you're on your own.
I've never heard that before, and I don't even know like what that'd be in reference to as
What
far
does it
as,
mean? Yeah.
sometimes we use phrases or we use certain things colloquially, or and I don't know. Lubed on what end? I'm not sure. That would be an interesting question to ask Gail Simone.
Yeah. Or I thought you were gonna say Chat GPT. Chat
Oh no.
GPT, what
No,
does
no, no.
we're lubed on
I
this
don't
end
want to
now?
know what Chat GPT has to say about
Ah,
anything.
yes, we're lubed on this end. Listen, my mind goes to a dirty place, and I'm just like trying to connect how that would work. I don't know. I just
Well,
don't know how that would work. Like, I can't
you,
connect the two anyways. So we'll just
yeah,
move
it
on.
doesn't work.
Yes, it could get. Yes, okay. Another good quote: "Nobody should have to live by what Batman thinks of them." Huntress.
Yeah. Well, she would know.
She would know.
She would
Yes,
know.
yes. I did like that quote.
And good for her.
Yes, for sure. So Barbara does walk with an asterisk, we'll say, because we find out where that is. And it's interesting because, well, when I was reading this, I actually thought that she was walking. And I thought, oh my gosh, the seeds were sowed for what we encountered with Gail Simone way back here in 2004. But we find this is all actually going on in her head space. So, not exactly. But I do know, oh, is it the cure that her foot wiggles? Is it that one?
I don't think that's this
Oh,
one.
okay. Okay. It might
If
be.
it is, then I did not, then I missed an issue or something.
There's definitely no foot or toe wiggling in this arc, but I wondered if it was in Birds of Prey or if it was Oracle or
Oh,
Cure that the wiggling happens.
it is in Birds of Prey, I
Okay,
believe.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
So we'll I guess I'll come back to that there.
some point.
Do you think it's clear enough that this is happening in her head, or is it a bit ambiguous? And if it is ambiguous, are you okay with the ambiguity that she's walking? I'm not sure where she's walking.
It so when I read it, I didn't necessarily think she was in her head.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm,
guess maybe that can speak to the ambiguity.
mm-hmm.
I thought she was in like cyberspace,
Oh,
and that's why she could walk. Though it works with being in her head too. It's a
yeah,
weird. I think the ambiguity actually, it works in that way because she's not in a physical space,
correct.
which is I think what matters.
Yes. Yeah, I initially thought, oh my gosh, she's actually walking. And then all of this transformation that's happening, this is actually happening to her.
Yeah.
And I was really having to suspend my disbelief because I thought, how is this happening physically on her body? But yes, so headers, the cyberspace, that's very interesting. Now I'm using a lot of the Matrix as a model for this and wondering, and that's kind of how I can break through and make sense of this from happening. But like I said, I've had to suspend my disbelief maybe a lot for this particular issue. I guess that makes sense since she was able to look at a screen. So she's probably right now looking at zeros and ones.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Like the physical, what's happening
Yeah.
physically to her is maybe she's just zoned out in front of the screen. It's just zeros and ones, or
Yes. Wow. Now, do you think that Barbara Gordon's got a pretty powerful security network installed? It's not just McAfee, it's more. It's Macabarbara. It's would you say that it makes sense that Brainiac is able to break through?
yeah, I believe it because
Okay.
Brainiac is, I don't know tons about Superman and Brainiac and stuff, but as far as I know, Brainiac's pretty powerful and he can do that. If there's anyone who could do that, it'd be Brainiac.
I think that's I mean, I have some overall questions with I guess his motives. But we can save that, I guess, for the end. I know his motives now, but I wondered what the motives were with the kids and the cult. Does he get power from them dying? I guess
Yeah.
I'm trying to connect all of that from what we read. But we can, I guess, go back to that. Any other thoughts I didn't have a lot to say about this. I think it's all just like building and building.
Yeah, so you had mentioned, because I was trying to figure this out when Dinah goes to save the first kid,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
I
yeah.
wasn't sure, but you said, but I was wondering if it was the case. So that kid's dressed as Speedy, huh?
Yes. Speedy what? Yes. Wait.
Because it kind of looks like Speedy, but I couldn't confirm it for myself.
I believe that it is Speedy.
And Speedy, because Speedy is Roy Harper, right? Or
Yeah.
was Roy Harper
Correct.
at some
Yeah.
point? Because I just think that's a really interesting layer if that's true for Dinah,
Oh,
because of her
I didn't even think
relationship with
about that.
Roy.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
I think even, and again, it's hard for me to pinpoint what was going on with the Arrow family at this point in time, but in the first, is it the first issue when she goes and she talks to the father of one of the kids who killed herself, and he mentioned something about how hard it is to lose a child and hoping she never has to go through that. And I was just, I don't know if you knew anything about her history with Roy at this point, but that's something that stuck out to me, that
Yeah.
was like kind of a cool layer if it worked, because I
Yeah.
know Roy was like this like son, younger brother to her in certain parts, in certain times.
Well, in
I also didn't
six,
know he was
yeah,
dead at this point in
with
time
Roy
either.
is, yes. Well, who wasn't it Roy that Huntress in 68?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so, and then, yeah, Dinah was upset at that. So I feel like there is a relationship there and it's pretty strong. And isn't that little girl whose name I've forgotten, isn't that Roy's daughter that Dinah will soon take care of? I think she was killed.
And
Shag doesn't like to talk about it. Cheshire and Roy's,
oh,
yeah,
Leanne.
yeah.
When does she end up taking care of
I thought
Leanne?
that she helped. Maybe not.
She
This
no,
is
she might have. I'm not. I was just curious if you
It
knew
hasn't
because I
happened
don't know.
yet in
Okay,
where we are.
got
But
it.
I feel like there have been conversations about how close she is with Roy in this actual book,
Yeah.
especially
So
in 68. But you're right. I didn't even make that connection. And maybe the reason why, because I don't think Gail really necessarily honed in on it, because maybe there should have been more of a reaction from Dinah.
yeah, I think if Gail had, yeah, Gail could have honed in more on it
Yeah,
if she was aware of it. But regardless, I thought it was a nice little layer if you
absolutely.
were aware of that history between the two of
Yeah.
them.
And you get a butt shot right there.
Oh, well,
So
is
happy
that
day.
the first bet? Is that the only butt
It
shot?
wasn't, no. I was just on the page and I thought, oh,
Because wow, that's pretty good.
no, it's not, but we can, yeah. Any other thoughts on this?
I do not think so.
So, listeners, if you know what it means to be lubed on this end, please let us know. Mm. Okay. So, our final one, kind of a scary cover. And I have to say, each time I flip these over, this is what I'm seeing. For 3 issues in a row,
That
I've
is
been
that really brings me back.
the female gaze. I know the BMX. I didn't know he had a scar right down there. So Helena, take lessons. This is how it should be. Okay, Birds of Prey 73. Between Dark and Dawn, Part 5, Blood and Circuits, early November 2004. Okay, this is a bit more complex. So, writer Gail Simone, penciler for pages 1 through 6, 11 through 14, 17, 20, and 21, Ron Adrian, and Eric Battle is the rest. Inker on pages 1 through 6, 11 through 14, 17, 20, and 21, Rob Leah, and inker for pages 7 through 10, 15 through 16, 18 through 19, and 22, Rodney Ramos, and colors Hi Fi. In Oregon, Vixen and Huntress fight a pack of metahumans led by Geoforce, and the leader is actually not dead. So Huntress didn't kill him. She threatens to kill him, of course. And even if he doesn't believe she has it in her, we know that she does. Vixen forbids it. But, well, Huntress doesn't care. So In Gotham, Black Canary reminds Gordon of who she is. I don't In Gotham, Black Canary reminds wait. Okay. In Gotham, Black Canary returns from saving the kids and gets hit by a super strong Babs. Black Canary reminds Babs of who she is by bringing in a bunch of stuff, like a picture of her dear old dad, her picture with Nightwing, a Batman doll, which, you'd think that would not be the best to bring in, but she does. And Babs fights back against Brainiac's control over her. In Oregon, Huntress takes hold of the cult leader and convinces him to order the metahumans to stand down and save the children so he can be the first cult leader not to require death. And he does so. And back in Gotham, Babs defeats Brainiac, basically. Okay. Okay. Yes. I know we're in a comic, as I say in my notes, but is all the Brainiac bad stuff realistic? Especially what is happening on the inside, turning into a physical manifestation on the outside. And I think my sticking point, which I even wrote to myself, is that she's not actually connected to the computer with her brain. Like if she were plugged up Matrix style, I'd be like, absolutely, this makes sense. But it all comes from the zapping from the computer screen. So are you just able to suspend and go through?
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't bother me the way it
Okay.
bothers you, so I can suspend my disbelief for that.
Okay. Wow.
You wanna talk about the cover?
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you can't forget the cover.
Yes, thank you. So you like this because you reminded me.
I like it better than the first 3.
Okay.
I think it's nice just because I don't feel like there's, like, any crazy objectification going on with Vixen and Huntress. It's kind of creepy and cool with the eyes. Yeah, I like it.
It is pretty crazy. I guess that could be, I guess it's the cult looking at them.
I guess, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Now, does Vixen have a camel toe?
I do not see a camel toe. I'm not looking that hard.
No, my male audience won't understand what that means, so I'm okay asking it. Okay. No, it's pretty good. Now you get an idea of what her actual costume is. I don't see
Yeah.
her totem on her, however.
No, I don't. It
I don't
looks
know
like
if
it's
that was an
missing.
error. Yeah. Okay. And for once, yeah, they're not fighting. Okay. Yes. So realism, I am not buying it as much. Okay. Oh, yes. Inconsistency. Huntress can name check Flamebird at the beginning of the issue, but then she suddenly forgets. Did you notice this? I'm gonna have
I
to find
did
it.
not notice it.
So at the beginning, in her narration, I believe she says Bumblebee and Flamebird, couple of ex-Titans. And then let's see. Well, it's always a boring part where I have to flip to find my evidence. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna. Oh, okay. I'll say this for what's her name. I think she might be called Flamebird.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
So that was the disrespect. I was actually shocked to see Flamebird there. Shocked, but I liked it.
Yeah.
But I guess she's not getting a lot of respect. Okay, so I call it a personality switch. I don't know if you will in the leader. Now we can, I think, talk about his like greater personality because he does seem like pretty rabid and evil now.
Mhm.
Do you feel like it was just like this arc that we were seeing him on and this is who he truly is? Did something snap or is it an inconsistency?
Well, I think as the issues have gone on, we've seen him interact more, and get guidance from who we now know as Brainiac. So at this point, I just thought, Bruce Hawes just himself, who he is, his intentions, they've kind of eroded away and Brainiac's just possessed him or
Okay.
kind of replaced him, and that's how I view this.
So you think that Brainiac has done what he does to is doing to Babs to okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That I think makes sense. Do you believe that Huntress's crossbow jammed? At the very end, she said,
Oh,
I didn't
good
kill. Let's see. I mean, that was a good
good
one.
question.
Was it at the end? Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah, because
And then
right,
she's,
Vixen
yeah.
asks her or
Yes.
tries to stop her, tells her
Yep.
not to kill her, something like that. And then
Yeah.
Huntress is like, "Well, my crossbow
Yeah.
jammed."
Yeah. Thank you, Huntress, for not giving in. Don't thank me, Mari. The truth is my crossbow jammed.
I think it jammed.
Okay.
Yeah, I and I can only say I think it jammed because from my perspective, that just makes Huntress a more interesting character at this point. So
Yeah.
I like thinking of it like that.
Though it is also on the flip side, it's interesting if she's lying because that is like a character that's her making some strides.
Yeah, but why would she be lying to but in that case, she'd just be, like, lying to herself, right? Because who is she
Yeah.
talking to when she's isn't it, like, in one of those thought boxes when she's like, "Don't thank me, the crossbow jammed"?
It's in a thought box, but unlike the Batgirl's thought boxes, it has quotations.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think she's responding to Mari.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, it could be interesting to see that
Either way.
growth
Yeah.
in her, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, she shot him once. She was about to do it. I don't think you should ever like forbid Huntress to do anything. Number one, she's going to do the opposite. Number two, like she'll absolutely kill somebody.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I already asked about that nicer older guy. We don't get to see him at the end. Okay, so big questions. Do you have any detailing questions before I start my big questions about the whole arc?
No.
Okay. What do we learn about the main three characters in this arc, would you say?
Oh,
So, would you like to start with Helena?
good question, good question.
Because I always like to step back now and say, well, how has this progressed our characters?
Yeah. Well, I think what we've learned about Helena is that she's still very conflicted about her role, I think, on this team, but also just as a vigilante in general. And I think I wish I knew more about Helena's background with her Catholicism because I
Yeah.
feel like that was something that was teased out in this and sort of juxtapositioning it with the cult mindset. And I wish I had more to say on that too, because that also seems to be a point of like contention for her. And so I think that's kind of where we're left with Helena is that she's still doesn't seem that she is fully committed to playing by these rules that Barbara set up, which frankly are quite, or that Vixen voices like not to kill the guy,
Yeah.
and then Barbara kind of follows the same idea of no killing, and I just think we're seeing we're seeing Helena's like real thoughts and challenges she's having. So that's kind of where I think we are left with Helena at the end of this arc.
Yeah, I trying to find because there is an interesting that she has no more faith. I can't remember where this was exactly, like the reason why basically she was. Oh, here it is. It's with Vixen in a car, and she says, "Why didn't I fall under Broussard's control like the rest of you?"
Mhm.
And Vixen says, "You really don't know. Broussard's my control preyed on our faith, Huntress. You didn't fall because you no longer believe." She says, "Huh, and to think of all that time I spent at mass as a kid." I it seemed to be a pretty big part of her character, like, in the past, her history, having that Catholicism. Yes, she's a bit brutal, for what she does. I kind of always, compared her a bit to Daredevil, who isn't also, the gentlest of heroes. So to have that, I don't know where this is very surprising for me. I feel like this was an interesting arc because we are dealing pretty heavily with religion and maybe how these characters, what their relationship is with it, how they're dealing with it, that it can be perverted and like how do you deal with that sort of thing. So like the negative and positive aspects of it. Mari clearly has a really positive relationship with it, whether that's through her father or her own upbringing. And it seems like Huntress is less about, having faith in who people are or I don't know, maybe who God is and more in like people prove themselves by their actions.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, this guy, Broussard, was a great guy. So she's going off of that. And then as he turned into this murderous guy, she's like, well, that's who you actually are. And so I'm going to punish you for it. Um, yeah, I don't I'm very interested to see. I don't know if we're gonna get back to this, but it just seems very, sudden for me, that she is now, like, she doesn't have and did she not realize it? The fact that Vixen knows that she doesn't have faith and Huntress doesn't know herself is really interesting. Earlier, Huntress says, "If you" no, Vixen says, like, "If you don't have faith in me." So that's yeah, I don't know. It's that I think this is very complicated, Helena's arc, and what we learn about her is, I think, the most complicated of the 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think
I
it's a
don't know.
lot to
Yeah.
parse out.
Yeah, I don't know that I can vocalize or verbalize, yeah, what's going on here. But, to a certain extent, I do believe that it's true. People prove, I think, who they are through their actions. So I can, kind of see where Barbara is, and we can have as much faith in, like, hopefully they'll do the right thing, but when it comes down to it, it's like, well, you didn't do the right thing there, sir. So,
Yeah. I wonder with Helena too, and this is me inferring a lot because I don't know how much her relationship with God and religion has been explored in other comics necessarily, but I think there could also be a sort of loss in faith in sort of these big powerful like I think of Batman, right? And he's, this big powerful hero, this god almost. But then, he treats Helena so poorly, we see, and kind of casts her out. And I wonder if you can just defer some kind of allusion to like being cast out of,
oh, interesting. Yeah.
God's flock and having to really take people as see even heroes and people with lots of power as human, not as these almighty beings. So
Yeah.
that's another thought I had with
So
that.
idol worship is what you're getting at.
What do you mean
Well,
by
I mean,
that?
well, I'm just saying, like, when you put people up on a pedestal, inevitably they're going to disappoint you.
Yeah, because they're human,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Oh,
maybe Helena's kind of lost that faith through just having those relationships with people who just disappoint her.
yeah,
So
yeah. I can get on board with that. What about Dinah? What do we learn from Dinah? How did Dinah develop in this arc?
yeah, Dinah's interesting in this because I think Gail does a really good job giving really uh letting each of our 3 leading women really unique roles, like unique to them. So I think the great thing about Dinah is like we did get to see her sort of play that support for for Barbara, right? Barbara towards the end, obviously, she wants to go in and help Helena. Barbara's like, no. And then Barbara gives her the job of going and talking to the families of the kids who've died by suicide.
Yep.
And I think if anything, this arc just reaffirms that that is one of Dinah's strengths.
Yeah.
Yes, we know she can go in, she can beat anyone up. She's strong. We know that she's talented. We know that she's capable. But when, you need to when you have a situation where you're talking to the families of victims, or someone's in the hospital, she's the one you're going to go to. She's got that supportive quality to her, that big sister mother quality to her.
Yeah. And we also see what she does when Barbara's out of commission. Like if Barbara's not there, she does not have all of her faculties, how would Dinah react? And
Yes.
like, and so Dinah, we can see that, oh well, Dinah will do just fine, and she can bring Barbara back from that.
Right, and she reminds Barbara of who she is, and
Yeah.
it's not an action scene. She's not like kicking Brainiac to the curb,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. I was surprised that Barbara has a Batman doll. I think it should have been the Batgirl doll that she
That would
usually
be cool.
has.
Yeah.
But there we have it. Barbara, what do we learn about her? We're not done with her and whatever's going on here.
No,
She's
certainly aren't.
got a tattoo. I'm just kidding. Her
A
skin's
little
glowing.
souvenir.
Yeah.
What do we learn about Barbara? That's a good question. I'm not sure what I take away with this from Barbara, except that, oh, now I know, because I was kind of hinting at this earlier with this whole idea of Barbara kind of being zapped into cyberspace or being absorbed by something like cyberspace. Because I think so, yes, I think the same thing happens with Bruce. Brainiac, he finds, it's not explicitly stated that he got to Brusa in a similar way that he got to Barbara by like doing something on a computer screen, but it's kind of how I interpret it, that something very similar must have happened. And I think there's a great juxtaposition between the two, between Brusa and Barbara. And you see that Brusa doesn't really have anything to ground him to reality and like back to like meat space, which I think even Brainiac uses that term of like
Yeah.
piles of meat and stuff like that in terms of humans. But Barbara does, and Barbara needs people to ground her back in reality, because she can get lost in her head, lost in her rationality and all her plans. She can get lost with the tech. Like we've seen this before. Barbara, is pretty isolated until she brings Dinah in, going all the way back to like Chuck Dixon's Birds of Prey. And so I think if anything you learn from Barbara is that at least she's got these people and things that ground her. And Dinah reminds her of all those things. Dinah is the one who, reminds her of her father, her relationship with Nightwing, Batman,
Yeah.
and I think that's as controversial as that one might be. Maybe it should have been the Batgirl doll.
Yeah.
But I think what I felt I took from Barbara with this by the end of it was, isolation is a dangerous thing, can be a dangerous thing for her, but she's not alone. So she doesn't have to worry about that. She's got her team and she's got other people for her.
Yeah.
So,
well, good thing Karen wasn't here, because it would have turned out very differently.
who was
Power Girl.
Oh,
because those two are on the outs. Could you imagine
yeah.
Power Girl, as soon as Baz was seizing on the ground, be like, I'm out. It's too much.
Good riddance.
Like, bye. Do you think Barbara could do a technology fast? Do you think she could unplug for like a day, maybe 24
Such a
hours?
good question. I don't know if she could. I don't know. Like I don't have, and by that I just mean I don't have an answer. Honestly, I never really thought of that before.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too, for her own health. I would hope so.
Yeah, well, this image must make you happy. As for me, I was having flashbacks to, the hunt for Oracle there. But yeah, the final one is just, their relationship, I think, was for me the most beautiful part of this, and that Dinah never left her side and was the person to snap her back. So I think Helena is very much the odd man out. I don't know if she's ever going to kind of get in there. It's like polyamory because Babs and Dinah are like the primary, and then you have Helena, and Helena just can't get into that primary situation. Um, that's the metaphor I'll use. But I mean, does Helena? I mean, you can spoil me. Does Helena get as close to these two as these two are currently?
I think the relationship Helena forms with each Barbara and Dinah separately, it it's very unique and it's different, and it does have a close quality, but it's not like but I wouldn't necessarily say, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at with your metaphor and everything. It doesn't really feel like Helena comes in and they're like this cohesive team and everyone's super close. It just seems to me like Helena does end up developing a specific relationship to Barbara, and she ends up developing a specific relationship to Dinah, and it's close in some ways. And it's not another. It's complicated.
Okay.
It's definitely not like Babs and Dinah, which we've had this relationship being built, since Chuck Dixon, and it's very like close and it's different. That's about
Okay.
all I can say about it, I
Okay.
guess.
That's fine. I don't need too many spoilers
Yeah,
on
and I don't
this,
want to
but
spoil details because I
yeah.
do want you to experience it yourself.
I
So
appreciate that. Yes. So and I think just the relationship between Babs and Dinah was spot on. So good on you, Gail Simone. Any other thoughts on this arc?
yeah, I guess I really liked it. We touched about this a bit on the beginning. Like I think it still feels very relevant because I think it taps on some very like universal human experiences of belonging and and feeling like you're loved and you're supported, and cults prey on vulnerable people who don't have that,
Yeah.
and there is that reference in the beginning like, oh, these are kids who were raised on television and video games, and yeah, it's a very lonely life, and you can see how a cult could be very seductive for
Mm-hmm.
that, and I think it happens a lot, and I think especially now it happens a lot on the internet. These
Yeah.
poor kids, they're lonely, they don't have anything else or anyone else. They go online, they fall down a weird dark rabbit hole, and it's hard not to have empathy because as people, we're all after the same thing. We just want to belong, we want a tribe.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. And so I felt I liked the topic a lot, and I thought it was again just really great Gail Simone storytelling. You have all these layers of moving parts, and felt the characters were spot on. So I enjoy this arc a lot, despite the covers.
Despite the covers, yes. And I'm interested in kind of the religious aspect, and how it tied to Vixen and Huntress, and see if that has any ramifications in the future for Huntress, whether that's teased out at all. But I certainly second all the things you say. As someone who is, in school and watching these kids,
Yeah.
and even though there's a no technology, no cell phones during active teaching time, they're out all the time. I mean, go to the bathroom and there's like someone in the stall, clearly not going to the bathroom, like doing a TikTok or something. Right? You can't even for a little bit be off. It's a lot. It is a lot. Out of 10 Brainiac tattoos, what
Ooh.
would you give this issue?
I, the issue or the whole arc?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You
Yes,
said issue, so I didn't know
I
what
did
issue
say
you were
that.
talking
Yes, the
about. Okay.
whole arc
The whole arc.
between Dark and Dawn. What would you give this story?
I'd give it a solid 8.
A solid 8.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Like I said, really had to suspend my disbelief. Um, I'll give it a 7.5 Brainiac
Yeah.
tattoos, I think. Okay. Now on to listener emails to see. I think there were some comments. Donovan on part one of the video says that Steph was in the clock tower with Babs and Cass during last laugh. I did forget about that when they fought Shadow Thief. So she would have known of Oracle's ID and vice versa then. So very true. And then he also said, quote, I feel like he, and in parentheses, Batman is a hypocrite, end quote, take a shot, I guess, every time I say that, which that's like alcohol poisoning waiting to happen if you would do that. And nothing on part two. So I do have several emails because a lot was going on in the previous episode. Two of them are, in fact, from my former, sometimes beloved, Donovan Morgan Grant. So, the first one, he calls me out, and the subject line is dissenting opinion alert, Batgirl 54. Hey Stella, all in caps. Wanted to write in my thoughts about your coverage of Batgirl 2000, issue number 54. It's funny, I remember reading this issue with you well over 10 years ago, back when when you read this series the first time. Do you remember that? I do remember that, Donovan. Rereading the story was a fast read for me, in that the main purpose of the story was to not only create a wedge between Babs and Cass, but also continue thickening Cassandra's fear that she's fundamentally different from everyone else. Her learning disability and illiteracy were used in a major way, endangering the lives of innocents when she needed to read the most. But I don't agree with framing this as a flaw in Cassandra's character, that she didn't just quote unquote work on it and get better at the ABCs. It's a learning disability. This gets specified more in later issues, but it's important to note that for the sake of this review, that Cass's failure to improve her literacy shouldn't be perceived as a lack of discipline. When it comes to crime fighting, she wants to improve on whatever will make her a better hero. Recall back in the Kelly Puckett, Damian Scott days when she tried to improve her detective skills. In this issue, she buries her face in her hands as though she's crying, telling Oracle that she's tried hard but can't make it happen. And where was Barbara during all of this? He's always got to call out my girl. Batman gave Cass her own Batcave, but Babs always knew where to find her. They still work together all the time. I think Barbara, who has always thrown herself into the mother role in Cass's development, must have been caught up with Birds of Prey duties and her other appearances in the Bat books to keep up with Cassandra's education, because it's really ridiculous for her to yell, "Why don't you know this yet?" She knows Cass's history. She knows that she spent her entire life going without reading, writing, or speaking. She knows that Cassandra was abused, and she's even questioned if she and Batman are adding to her abuse by having her be Batgirl. So where does the condemnation come from exactly? Nobody likes their favorite characters acting badly, but there's no getting around the repugnant behavior Babs displays in this issue towards someone who can't learn the ABCs as well as she can pick up stick fighting. And Barbara's smart enough to know that. So I have to believe she's purely been distracted and not just acting like an a hole, because being upset that a library is burning, frankly, doesn't excuse how she spoke to Cass. Maybe the thing with the birds is still in her brain. Maybe she's still feeling a type of way about breaking up with Nightwing. There's a number of reasons. But to my mind, it is entirely her fault that Cassandra's literacy hasn't progressed and not Cass's. To find ways that both characters share the blame in my mind is there's no word for it that comes up other than gross. Well, he just called me gross. But the issue isn't intending to purely castigate Barbara. Cass has been in her fifis about relating to Batman. I don't know what that phrase means. Relating to the other members of the Bat family and her own self worth. Remember when she got hooked on the soul drug and was bombarded by floating images of her friends and family all arguing about what's good for her? This issue just continues that track to challenge the character into being defined aside from the other older Bat people. I like this issue because, as painful as it can be to see characters you love having a falling out, we don't often see moments like these when it's born from something behavioral. It's usually an event or action, like Batman telling Spoiler Tim's secret identity without his knowledge or consent. At the end of this, Babs apologizes, but the damage is done. No one, see, she doesn't forgive. There's that whole thing. No one shut each other out of a door or took away a costume. And the question for the readers going forward is, how can these two repair their relationship when one has seen the other at her worst? Those are my thoughts. I can hear voice reading this out already as I type it, but I'm looking forward to your thoughts as always. And he gave me 5 peaches because that's often what I see on his spicy Instagram. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that issue or what Donovan has called me to task on?
I do not.
Okay.
It's been so long since I've read those, so
You
I
don't
don't
want to
really
get in
have anything
between
to
us, do
say.
you? Um, I don't know what to say, Donovan. I don't know what to say. I still think if she were as dedicated to fighting as she were to reading, it wouldn't be a problem. But I guess he doesn't like that particular answer. I agree with you that I think Barbara holds the majority of the blame for this, but I do still think that Cass could have done a little bit more. And I guess that's all I'll say. I guess that's all I'll say. I will say that Donovan and I got into a bit of a tiff, an argument over me making these back rolls out to be like real life humans because I think I was complaining about Barbara leaving them and like they're young adults. They should be with some sort of guidance. He's like, they're comic book characters. But now he's doing the opposite, I feel, because I feel like he's very much assigning this as like a real human being versus a comic book character. So like for Cass, for me, as a comic book character, I'm like, she should have, put in some time, just a couple minutes or hours a day. But as a human being, absolutely, it's the teacher's responsibility to try to help with illiteracy. Next, oh yeah, it's Donovan again. He says, "Oh no, not me again." That was a subject line. This is luckily not addressed to me. He says, "Heyo, Kermit the Frog here once again. This time I'm responding to guest Ian Prime's thoughts regarding superheroes and politics and the utility of protest. I appreciated his perspective insofar as they presented a different viewpoint to mine. However, his views don't seem to be well thought out, in my opinion, so I want to at least throw up some counterpoints for the sake of consideration. Number one, I agree with him that superheroes are creations representing franchises meant to appeal to as far a demographic reach as possible. However, it's completely erroneous to suggest that they don't sufficiently engage in politics because of that fact. Superman was created in 1938 as an explicit socialist hero, fighting for equality on very unfair terms and even combating the Axis forces and Hitler before America entered World War II. In the 50s and 60s, while the books were always rather limp on racial diversity, DC Comics would make ads featuring Superman and Batman talking to kids about the evils of racial prejudice. Over in Marvel Comics, Stan Lee was even less interested in being apolitical about some things he truly cared about. Peter Parker thinks to himself upon hearing that Flash Thompson got drafted to fight in Vietnam that Americans are, quote, fighting a war that nobody wants with an enemy they don't even hate, end quote, or words to that effect. He was also extremely effusive in incorporating Black characters into the comics and showing them to be intelligent, cool, admirable characters, every bit as awesome as the heroes. By the end of the 1960s, nearly every Marvel book featured a main Black supporting character, something DC Comics couldn't match. Number two, this brings me to the DC heroes in the 1970s. Ian claims that Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, often is a political hypocrite. While Ollie's definitely a chauvinistic loudmouth, he's very explicitly intentional with his politics. Near the end of the Denny O'Neil Neil Adams run, Green Arrow finds himself ambushed in an alley and is forced to defend himself while injured. His bad aim results in him accidentally killing his attacker, and as a result, Oliver destroys all of his Green Arrow weaponry, tech, and paraphernalia and leaves town to join a monastery. He only returns to the fold when Green Lantern informs him that Black Canary's life is in danger. Throughout the 1970s, Denny O'Neil's influence would have an effect over DC Comics, which was comparatively more conservative than Marvel. Take, oh, I don't know, Batgirl, for instance. We may not know Barbara's political affiliation, but we do see her being engaged in activism, helping people vote, even people who are routinely discouraged by the Conservative Party to effect change in their communities. There are scenes of her voters wheeling people out of their homes to vote. Batman becomes more of a thoughtful character, incorporating a mix of detective skills and martial arts to combat crime with less violence in the Silver Age. Later on, the question changes from a conservative objectivist to a near pacifist, incorporating a Zen like philosophy. What Ian is saying isn't untrue. These characters can only go so far in their politics, but that doesn't negate the strides they've made throughout history that have been political. I didn't even mention the first appearance of Jon Stewart, which is anything but subtle. The problem is that framing politics and especially activism as a biased indulgence that would drive away readers, well, it hasn't ruined the comics industry yet. Of course, activism has been largely foundational in this country's development. As Justin Pearson said earlier this month when getting expelled for protesting the Tennessee Capitol against gun violence, America was founded on a protest. This is celebrated every year during July 4th. The women's movement was a protest. The Stonewall Uprising was a protest that put a huge spotlight on gay rights in the country. The civil rights movement was a protest. The George Floyd murder resulted in protests around the world advocating for racial justice. To dismiss activism as useless because people who have money make the rules is, to my mind, horrendously short sighted and does not truthfully engage in history. And things like diversity, exploration of class, and inequality are a kind of protest as well. Stephanie Brown being a teenage mother with a criminal father and addict mother, and her being a hero is a type of activism, even if Chuck Dixon most certainly didn't intend for it to be. It shines a light on realities that people in this country face. The world is far less recognizably distinct in black and white colors than we grew up thinking now with the internet and the information age. I could go on, but maybe Ian would like to continue this conversation on questions we don't have answers. Sorry for the rant. Feel free to get a drink of water after reading this on the show. Yeah, I'm about to. Yes, I forwarded that to Ian, and Ian did in fact come on to Quinoa this month. Yes, in May. So you can go and get that. I think it's called Harmony. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, they have Ian converses with Don and Harry about the three topics are gun control, the sexual revolution, and I think just conservatives in politics in general. So there you go. Any thoughts on that particular email?
Uh, Not too much. I definitely agree with Donovan, though I could see what Ian was trying to get at during that episode. I remember listening to that, but I think there I think Ian was coming at it from I could see where Ian was coming at it from, you know, to me it sounded like he was coming from it from like an economical perspective or a business perspective, being like, hey, as a company that publishes books and we need to make money to survive, we're going to keep things really general and not reference specific issues or do anything that's going to be too off-putting to the mainstream, or that's not going to let us capture the greatest audience possible, because that's how we make money and that's how we stay in business and that's how we survive and we support the people who work for us and support ourselves, which I interpret as what Ian was getting at, and I see that. But Donovan, he listed, great examples of when there
Yeah.
were controversial things put in comics. So
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, I don't know. When I look at Barbara Gordon, there's like no way, and obviously, it's a biased viewpoint, but I just feel like there's no way that that lady is conservative leaning with the things that she's done and got up against. But yeah, and with that activism talk, I mean, Donovan certainly spoke better than I did on the podcast. Just because I was shocked to hear sort of that viewpoint. But maybe I think sometimes people have this idea of, and Donovan used the word protest, but like activism just be like marching and holding up signs. But even the good Professor Carolyn Cook has said like activism is really anything active. So at the very base, like voting is activism, like anything that's trying to institute change. And I just like shudder at the thought of what this country would be like with, I mean, it's not in a good place necessarily, but just like where different people groups would be, like even me, like I would not be here speaking to you if like there was not activism um in any sort of form. So it's just my thoughts on that. You wrote in an email. Would you like to read your email so that I
Sure.
can take a break?
Yes, I am more than happy to read my email.
Thank
This is
you.
like a great honor. Not only is
Oh,
my email in, I'm gonna read my email.
yes. What a blessing.
Okay. Okay. BFF Stella. I feel like I must clarify my last email and my thoughts about BOP number 68. With all due respect to Ian, I think he misunderstood me. First, I agree with his point that one of the strengths of Simone's run is her character writing, especially of women. That is one of the main reasons why I love her BOP run and her Batgirl run. I think she does a great job writing relatable and flawed women. I also agree with his point that slut shaming still exists to this day. My point in my email had to do specifically with the portrayal of slut shaming in popular media. I think the portrayal in popular media was much more common around the time this issue was published, hence why I said number 68 felt of its time. I was by no means dismissing the messy and complicated realities of being a woman. Trust me, I am one. And I have slut shamed, I've been slut shamed, I've hurt people because of my own trauma, and vice versa. And I very much believe in the importance of having stories that don't shy away from the bad and ugly of the human experience. Hell, I prefer them. Nor was I suggesting that number 68 was simply a dating comic. Though, to be fair, I can only guess what Ian meant by this, because I'm not too familiar with the term myself. Anyway, I wanted to clear that up because I think Ian and I probably agree more than we disagree. Batgirl's number 17. It feels strange to say, but I'm kind of sad that this series is going to end in a couple months. It really seemed to be getting better overall. This issue in particular, I thought was really good. It felt like there was a lot at stake. I also feel invested in Grace, and I'm curious to see where she ends up at the end of all of this. The gun violence in this issue demands a more serious tone, that's for sure. It feels quite different from anything the writers have given us in this run, and I quite like it. I really appreciated your thoughtful questions and Ian's nuanced answers about gun violence and activism. Shayna.
Now you know what it's like to read emails. uh, do you feel like slut shaming it comes from a place of internal misogyny when it's coming from women?
Hmm. I don't I don't know, I guess. I guess I'm gonna kind of try to articulate this in my answer where I think slut shaming comes from because I I'm not sure. I think it's always complicated to know what's internal misogyny and what might well, maybe it is internal misogyny. Because I guess what I was gonna say is sometimes I think it's just the culture around you. But I guess if the culture is misogynistic, it internalizes that in you, and that's how it happens. So maybe maybe I do. I guess I do. I think it can also come from other places too, though. Like I think it's complicated. And kind of what I remember Ian was talking about in response to my first email, and then what I kind of wanted to address there was I think it can come from trauma and stress too. And sometimes it can just be a way to hurt someone. And I guess whether that at the end of the day you can be reductionist and reduce that down to internal misogyny, maybe. I don't know. And I think it's so complicated. I'm
No,
not
it
sure
is
I can really
complicated. It's not
articulate
hard.
it,
Yeah, I
Stella.
didn't
I'm
ask.
sorry. It's
No,
hard
no,
to
no. I
hard to
think
articulate.
that's like a podcast on its own, to be honest. And to read. Yeah, it's really interesting, and obviously there's a double standard, obviously, because men are hoeing
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
and this has been happening for centuries. But as soon as the women, try to go out on their own, it's seen as it's really bad.
Yeah.
So, yes, no, it's a very complicated issue. I don't think I have anything further.
Yeah, I
Um,
also I just try to be really careful with what I say. I think it's easy to
yes,
dismiss things or say or make them seem more simple than they are. And so
yeah,
I don't have too much to say on that, I suppose, for that
yes.
reason.
Yeah, and I am in this really weird situation where my former students are adults now. And so I know way more about their sex lives than I potentially would. I would not. I would not. I feel blessed that they trust me, like, I'm glad that I am that presence in their life and that they don't feel judged for me, especially because, hey, I taught them in a Christian school there, and for me engaging in those topics because they know that that's not, I wouldn't necessarily be going out and doing these things. I just ask questions. I just ask questions. I always am careful of my tone, just because I don't ever want it to be perceived as, as a judgment. And I will even say, like, after I ask a question, I'm like, this is no, I'm just like asking for information, all that stuff. And really, first and foremost, I just want to know that my girls are being safe and that they are safe and that the partners that they're with are treating them well, and kindly, and that's really, at the end of the day, that's all I care about. So it's been very interesting. It's been interesting. I told Donovan at one point, like, I've been collecting V cards like Pokemon cards because it's just like they're telling me these stories, and I'm like, I taught you as an eighth grader. But yeah, in no way would I think, even though, I know a couple that have had multiple partners, I would never look at that person and be like, you shouldn't be doing that. So that's just not my concern right now. It's their life. It's their life to live it. Are you being safe? And are you being treated well? That's all I care about.
Yeah, I think people, if they, if you know it's consensual and that's what they want, and then yeah, and they're not hurting anyone else,
Correct.
it's their
Yes.
business.
Yeah. It is their business.
But except
Absolutely.
maybe in your case, it's your business.
Yes, it's also my business. Yeah. Well, I mean, if they ask me questions or if they're telling me stuff, then I'll just ask, all sorts of questions. And then I feel like I was talking actually with a friend of mine, and because I'm so used to now getting all this information, I didn't get any information from her. And this is a colleague. And I was so shocked that she wasn't telling me everything or anything really. And I was like, this is like a weird feeling. I'm so used to someone like being open and talking about this. She just did not. She's like, it's very private. And she was shocked that I was engaging in that. She's like, I'm so like, you, Stella, that's asking this. I'm like, really? Like, she was just weirded out. I'm like, I guess I've just evolved as a Pokemon. Uh that my I used to be very what would it be? I can't think of the term about sex. What is that when you're very blank about it? With base like not puritanical, but just very like, don't talk to me about it. And now it's more like, oh yeah, I'll absolutely engage in conversation, which I think is good and healthy for me. Okay, last one is from my good friend Tom Panarese. This is the last one. Stella, once again, a great it is the last one, yeah. Okay. Once again, a great episode and great coverage. I'm interested in seeing what you think of War Games because that's the exact moment that approved, I guess maybe is what I'm thinking about.
Uh,
That is the exact moment I dropped Batman completely, and with the exception of picking up Nightwing at various times of the years, have read very little of the main back titles. A quick current events check. I haven't read this issue of Batgirl, so I may be off here, but the shooting you described sounded like the writers may have been pulling from the 4th of July parade shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, last year, 2022. The DC sniper shooting doesn't really fit here. Anyway, I wanted to write in to comment on the question of whether or not superheroes can be activists. On your show, Ian made a point about how they shouldn't because of the way that writers and the publisher should not want to alienate any fans. I understand where he's coming from, especially considering if you look at superheroes as intellectual property and not human characters, but I disagree with the idea that they cannot or should not be activists at times. While the goal of these comic books is to entertain, and you certainly would not want to alienate your audience, always aiming for neutral ground when addressing current events, politics, or cultural issues shows a particular weakness on the part of the writer and publisher. If certain members of your audience cannot realize that literature and culture do not happen in a vacuum, that's on them. I know I'm sounding dismissive here, so feel free to take that as you will. Having a superhero or other comic book character address, stand up for, or champion a cause can be done well, or it can be done terribly, just like in any form of entertainment. Some of the more terrible examples of this are when stories veer into very special episode territory, or when the writers are clearly shoehorning in an issue on which they have clear feelings and opinions. When they do this, they often twist the characters to fit what they want to say, and that doesn't work for me. If you have your characters act completely out of character or the tone of the work is completely incongruous to every other issue of the book, then you're not doing your job. Plus, there are characters who have been activists for their entire existence. Would Ian want Wonder Woman to not stand for feminism and the need for women to be empowered and not feel they need to be protected by a man? I certainly wouldn't, considering how powerful a symbol she has been for her 80 years of publishing. Keep up the good work, Tom. Thank you, Thomas. Any thoughts on little Tom's email?
Yeah, just that very well thought out. I'd agree with all that. I think he kind of touched on what I was talking about with like intellectual property uh versus character. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was very
And
well thought out.
and I appreciate the current events check with the Highland Park. I can always rely on him for those things as well. Oh, I think that's it. My word. Oh no, there was last one. My chief style correspondent, Professor Allen, wrote in. He said, Stella, listening to this episode with Ian Prime, I heard the call for my opinion on Steph's hair on the cover of Batgirl 53. Oh, yeah, the craziness. I like it, pulled back for work with some flowing down the side of her face and against the black of the characters behind her. Both the red in her outfit and her hair pop very nicely. Thank you for keeping me on the payroll and seeking out input on my various range of expertises. And then says, P.S. on the political stuff, I tend to be on hashtag Team Ian Prime. Great conversation. And I think that was legitimately the end. Okay. Okay. Well, remember, you can always write in to backrollauracle@gmail.com or post on the YouTube. That's also possible. And Twitter sometimes comes to me. I think that's mainly it. Well, we're all lubed up on our end. So we're going to take a break. I mean, I still don't know what that means. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it'll be the shorter side of that. This has gone on for a while. It's going to be much shorter. We're just going to look at back rolls 18. I realize I've skipped a couple Nightwings. Don't worry. I'm sure they'll come back. But first, it is Zaius's Radio Hour featuring Way of Nature, Way of Grace by Ali and AJ, another one, and featuring Joy Oladokan as well. So see you soon.